A man can lose half his life without leaving his room, because his attention keeps slipping into scenes that do not exist. He sits in the present while his mind rehearses arguments, invents victories, replays humiliation, builds fantasy relationships, imagines future status, writes perfect conversations, and gives him emotional rewards for events that never happened. The body remains in one place, but the mind keeps escaping through hidden exits. After a while, reality starts feeling dull because the inner theater becomes more dramatic than the actual day. Real work feels slow compared to the fantasy, where everything finally comes together. Real conversations feel awkward compared to the invented ones, where every line lands perfectly. Real progress feels insulting because the imagined version of life arrives instantly, polished and complete, without the boring price of becoming. This habit does not feel dangerous at first. It feels private, harmless, even comforting. A man puts music in his ears and suddenly becomes the winner, the hero, the genius, the feared one, the admired one, the person everyone finally understood too late. For a few minutes, he is not dealing with the body he neglected, the project he avoided, the money he has not fixed, the courage he has not built, or the silence he cannot sit inside. That is why the escape works. It gives him a version of himself without requiring him to earn that version. The mind takes him into a room where he already has respect, power, love, revenge, success, and meaning. Then the song ends, the screen goes dark, the day is still untouched, and some quiet part of him knows the truth. Nothing was built, nothing was faced, nothing moved except tension. The modern world makes this addiction easier than breathing. Every platform offers material for a different life. A film gives the emotion of courage without the danger. A show gives the feeling of meaning without responsibility. Social media gives comparison, desire, anger, lust, envy, and borrowed identity in seconds. Music can turn an ordinary walk into a private movie where a man becomes everything he has not yet disciplined himself to be. None of these tools are evil by themselves. The problem begins when they become doors used to leave the present every time the present asks for work. A mind trained this way starts needing stimulation before it can feel alive. Silence becomes uncomfortable because silence removes the costume. Without input, the man has to meet the actual state of his life, and that meeting often feels too direct for someone who has spent years escaping through fantasy. Killingsworth and Gilbert found something brutal when they studied the wandering mind. People were mentally absent for a large portion of their waking hours, and the drifting mind was linked with less happiness, even when the activity itself was not terrible. That finding cuts deeper than it first appears. It means the problem is not always the task in front of you. The problem may be the refusal to be inside it. A man washing dishes while fully present may be more at peace than a man lying in bed, building imaginary futures for 2 hours. The first man is touching reality. The second is being drained by a private simulation. The mind thinks it is escaping discomfort, but it often manufactures more of it. It compares, predicts, regrets, exaggerates, rehearses, and then hands the body stress from events that never happened. The body pays for dreams it did not live. The wandering mind becomes a thief because it steals the quality of the hour, not just the hour itself. You can train while mentally arguing with someone. You can eat while watching a life you envy. You can sit with family while your attention lives inside future anxiety. You can work while half the mind is already designing some grand escape from the work. On paper, the activity happened. In reality, you were barely there. This is how life becomes thin. Presence gives weight to experience. Absence turns everything into a blur. A man who is never fully inside the moment cannot extract strength from it. He does not learn properly from pain, rest properly during rest, connect properly during conversation, or focus properly during work. He lives in fragments and then wonders why nothing feels solid. A fake scenario usually carries a hidden message. It is rarely random. Revenge fantasies often point to unresolved humiliation. Success fantasies may reveal ambition that has not been given a daily structure. Romantic fantasies can expose loneliness or the desire to be seen without risk. Arguments replay because the mind wants control over moments where it once felt powerless. Future disaster scenes may show a responsibility being delayed. The fantasy is not the enemy by itself. It becomes the enemy when you keep visiting it without extracting instruction. A disciplined man does not simply condemn the scene, he interrogates it. What desire is hiding here? What wound is repeating? Which action would make this mental loop unnecessary? Once the answer is found, the scene must be converted into work. Otherwise, it becomes a parasite feeding on attention. This is where imagination must be put back under command. The mind's ability to create scenes is not useless. Every invention, strategy, book, business, body transformation, and act of courage begins with some form of inner vision. The difference sits in obedience. A useful vision sends a man back into reality with orders. A toxic fantasy keeps him away from reality with pleasure. If the thought of a better body leads to training, it served you. When the thought of success leads to a focused hour of skill building, it was useful. If the imagined conversation leads to an honest message, it became action. But if the same fantasy returns every night and your life remains unchanged, you are not thinking. You are dosing yourself. The mind is collecting reward without producing evidence. That must end. A clear man creates rules around the triggers that keep dragging him out of life. Music may need limits if it keeps turning into identity theater. Shows may need to be earned after real work, not used as shelter before effort begins. Social media may need to be cut down sharply if it keeps feeding comparison and imaginary status games. Long walks can become training for presence instead of rehearsals for fake conversations. Work blocks should have no soundtrack if the soundtrack keeps pulling the mind into cinema. These are not dramatic restrictions, they are repairs. A man who keeps losing command of attention must stop pretending every input is harmless. The nervous system has been trained by repetition. It will need repetition to be reclaimed. The practical method is simple, but it will irritate the part of you addicted to escape. When a fake scene begins, do not immediately fight it like a fool wrestling smoke. Pause, name it, then ask what real action it is replacing. If you are imagining being respected, the action may be building competence. If the mind is replaying an insult, the action may be strengthening yourself until that insult no longer has a place to land. When the scene is about wealth, open the numbers or learn the skill. If it is about love, improve your real relationships or become someone more capable of honest connection. The fantasy must be forced to reveal its job. Once it points to the task, leave the theater and enter the work. That is how a man turns mental noise into direction.
Seneca understood a weakness that still rules modern minds. A man may be sitting in a safe room with food available, no enemy at the door, no verdict delivered, no disaster confirmed, yet his body behaves as if the blow has already landed. His chest tightens over a conversation that has not happened. Sleep disappears over a future that may never arrive. Anger rises because he has already invented the insult, the betrayal, the embarrassment, the rejection, the failure. Reality has not touched him yet, but his nervous system has already paid the price. That is a strange form of defeat. The world only threatened him once. His mind repeated the threat 50 times. He did not suffer from the event. He suffered from rehearsing the event until the rehearsal became more powerful than the truth in front of him. This is why fear can exhaust a man before the fight begins. He walks into the gym already beaten by the thought of being judged. He starts a project already tired from calculating how people might react. A difficult conversation gets delayed for weeks because the mind keeps staging the worst version of it. By the time the actual moment arrives, the body has spent days living under a private storm. The real event may last 10 minutes. The internal punishment may have lasted a month. That is not preparation. That is self-inflicted damage, wearing the mask of caution. A man must be cold enough to notice when his mind is not protecting him anymore, but weakening him through repetition. Fear becomes useful only when it points to action. Once it keeps circling without movement, it has stopped being a guard and started becoming a jailer. Seneca's answer was not childish positivity. He did not tell a man to smile at fear, deny danger, or pretend the world is gentle. His method was harder. Bring the imagined suffering into the open and examine it like evidence. Do not run from the thought immediately. Do not obey it blindly either. Hold it still and question it. What exactly is being predicted? What proof supports it? Which part of the prediction is fact and which part is theater? What action would reduce the risk? What outcome could be endured if it happened? This turns fear from a fog into an object. Fog surrounds a man and makes him weak because he cannot strike it. An object can be studied, measured, carried, cut down, or prepared for. The mind loses some of its tyranny when its vague terror is forced into plain language. A repeated fear usually has a function. It may be trying to protect pride, avoid shame, delay responsibility, preserve comfort, or prevent a man from entering a situation where his current identity might be exposed. A man who fears starting may not fear the work itself. He may fear discovering that he is not naturally gifted. Someone who keeps predicting rejection may be protecting an old wound, not reading the present clearly. Another man may call himself cautious because failure would destroy the image he has been building in private. This is why studying fear matters. The surface thought says, "This might go badly." The deeper truth may say, "I do not want to meet the version of myself who has no excuse left." That is the thought worth confronting. The mind often creates disaster scenes to keep you away from the judgment of reality. Modern life trains this habit with cruel efficiency. A man can wake up and feed his nervous system danger before his feet touch the floor. News, messages, comparison, conflict, bills, bodies, opinions, status, predictions, arguments, and endless noise enter the mind before it has built any command for the day. Then he wonders why his thoughts feel violent. The mind consumes threat and starts manufacturing threat. It learns to scan for what could go wrong because that is what it has been rewarded for noticing. Attention becomes a guard dog that never sleeps, but it starts biting its owner. A disciplined man has to protect the first hour of the day like a gate, not for softness, for command. The mind that begins the morning in panic will spend the day mistaking shadows for orders. A useful practice is to separate pain from anticipation. Real pain demands response. Anticipated pain demands investigation. When the bill arrives, respond. When the body is sick, respond. When the person speaks the truth to your face, respond. But when the mind starts charging you interest on a future that has not happened, stop payment. Sit down and write the fear in blunt terms. No drama, no decoration. State what you think will happen, then write what you would actually do if it did. This is where the monster shrinks. Losing a job would be brutal, but the next move can be listed. Rejection would sting, but it would not end the body. Embarrassment would burn, then pass. A failed attempt would give information. The mind prefers vague terror because vague terror feels infinite. Written reality has edges. Seneca also practiced preparing for hardship before hardship arrived. That does not mean living in misery or worshipping disaster. It means proving to the body that discomfort can be survived. Cold, hunger, simplicity, silence, rejection, hard training, difficult work, honest conversation. Each controlled exposure teaches the nervous system a lesson. This does not own me. A man who never voluntarily meets discomfort becomes easy to frighten because every inconvenience feels like an invasion. His life must remain soft, or his mind rebels. That is a dangerous dependence. Comfort becomes a master when it is never interrupted. Hardship chosen in small doses makes involuntary hardship less shocking. The body learns that strain can rise without command collapsing. A mind trained this way does not become fearless. It becomes less obedient to fear. The real enemy is not thought. The enemy is thought without leadership. A strong mind can forecast danger, plan intelligently, and study consequence without drowning in private torment. A weakly governed mind keeps producing scenes, then treats those scenes as commands. This is why discipline must reach the inner world, not just the schedule. Many men can force themselves through external tasks while remaining slaves inside their own heads. They lift, work, earn, and move, yet a single prediction can drag them into hours of useless suffering. Inner discipline means learning when to listen, when to question, when to act, and when to dismiss. Not every thought deserves a throne. Some deserve interrogation. Others deserve a sentence and exile. A man must stop confusing mental volume with truth.
Notice what your mind does with a wound it cannot close. It circles it, goes back again and again, poking at the same memory, running the same footage, searching for something it never finds. The insult from a decade ago. The rejection that still stings. The moment you froze when you should have spoken. Your brain treats these like unsolved problems, returning to them with the stubborn conviction that this time, if you just think about it hard enough, something will finally resolve. Nothing ever does. The scene is dead, but your mind keeps performing surgery on a corpse, and you keep letting it. Watch how much of your day this steals without your noticing. You are driving, and suddenly you are back in that argument. You are in the shower, and the old humiliation surfaces. You are supposed to be working, and your mind slips away into a courtroom where you finally prosecute the person who wronged you years ago. Hours vanish this way, scattered across your days in pieces so small you never add them up. But add them up and the total is staggering. Whole weeks of your life spent inside scenes that no longer exist, litigating a past that will never issue a verdict. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote something that dismantles this entire habit in a single stroke. He observed that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, that the mind creates torment far beyond anything the actual event contained. The insult happened once, in a moment that lasted seconds. You have replayed it 500 times. Which one actually hurt you more? The original wound was inflicted by another person. Every wound since then has been self-inflicted, delivered by your own mind on repeat for years. Marcus understood that the event ended long ago, and the suffering continued only because you kept choosing to reproduce it. Here is what the science reveals, and it should alarm you. Your brain cannot fully distinguish a vividly imagined scenario from a real one, which means every time you replay that old conversation, your nervous system responds as though the threat were present. Cortisol releases, your body braces. The stress response fires exactly as it did during the original event, and you take real physiological damage from a scene that exists nowhere but in your skull. This is not harmless thinking. You are dosing yourself with stress hormones on a schedule, wearing down your body and mind by reliving injuries that ended years ago and calling it reflection. Understand why the loop never closes, because this is the key to escaping it. Your mind returns to these scenes seeking resolution, some final word or action that would settle the matter and let it rest. But resolution is impossible. Because the scenario is no longer real, the moment is gone, and nothing you conjure now can reach back and change what happened. So the search never ends. The loop runs forever, always promising closure on the next replay, never delivering it. Because the thing it seeks does not exist and cannot be created. You are searching for an exit in a room with no doors. Recognize the disguise this habit wears, because it fools nearly everyone. Replaying the past feels productive. It feels like processing, like working something through, like the responsible thing to do with a difficult experience. Your mind sells it to you as thoughtfulness, as depth, as the honorable labor of a man examining his life. But genuine reflection has an endpoint, produces a lesson, and moves on. What you are doing has no endpoint and produces nothing, running the same loop with no new insight, no lesson extracted, no forward movement. The costume of thoughtfulness hides a mechanism that is simply damaging you in slow motion. Consider what this stolen energy could have built. The hours you spend rehearsing arguments you already lost, the cortisol you burn on scenes that ended long ago, the mental bandwidth consumed by a past you cannot alter. All of it represents power you could have aimed at the life in front of you. Imagine that same energy pointed forward, at the work, at the body, at the skills you keep saying you have no time to build. The resource was never missing. It was being consumed, night after night, by a mind stuck in reverse, and the man you could have become is starving while you feed the loop. Understand that the past has no power over you, except the power you actively give it every single time you drag it back into the present. That conversation from years ago is not happening. It exists in no place except your own reconstruction, summoned by you, sustained by you, granted its power over your body and your peace entirely by your own repeated choice to bring it back. The person who wronged you is not wronging you now. You are. Every replay is a fresh wound you deliver to yourself, and the only reason the past can still hurt you is that you keep resurrecting it.